I was working at this soul-sucking corporate job for nearly 5 years. Think gray cubicles, passive-aggressive emails, and those fake smiles people slap on before backstabbing you in a meeting. You know the type. It was one of those places where they talk about work-life balance in onboarding, but by week 2, you're checking emails at 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday. The final straw? It came on a random Tuesday, of all days. I was sitting through my 6th Zoom call of the day, barely holding back the scream building in my throat, when my manager, Lisa, decided to publicly humiliate me in front of a new client. She interrupted me mid-presentation with, "Let someone with actual experience handle this part, okay?" I'd been running those presentations for months. My jaw clenched so tight I thought I heard something crack. Later that afternoon, I went to HR. I thought, maybe, just maybe, someone would have my back. Spoiler, they didn't. HR's response was basically a shrug and a "you know how Lisa is." Yeah, I did. Lisa was a nightmare wrapped in an espresso-sipping, blazer-wearing disguise. And apparently, she was untouchable. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, counting its rotations, wondering if this was it. Was this what the rest of my life was going to look like? Being walked over, undervalued, and stuck? Around 3:12 a.m., something in me snapped. I grabbed my laptop, wrote a resignation email with 0 notice, hit send, and went back to bed with a calmness I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, I slept in. I didn't even check my phone. When I finally did, there were 14 missed calls from Lisa and 2 emails marked urgent. One of them was titled, "This is highly unprofessional." I smiled. Damn right it was. I went to brunch instead of work. Ordered the most overpriced French toast I could find, tipped 50%, and felt alive for the first time in what felt like forever. I thought that would be the end of it. Just a clean break. But oh no, quitting that job was only the beginning of the chaos. Because what happened next? I never could have seen it coming. Part 2, What Lisa Was Hiding. 2 days after I quit, I got a text from Angela, one of the only decent people left at the company. "You won't believe what's happening here," it read. I called her immediately. "You picked the perfect time to get out," she said. "People are losing their minds. Lisa's having meetings behind closed doors, and legal's been in 3 times already." Legal? That was new. Something was definitely up. Angela lowered her voice like she thought Lisa could hear her through the phone. "Turns out you weren't the only one she was screwing over." Apparently, Lisa had been fudging client data, optimizing KPIs, she called it, to make it look like our department was crushing its goals. She'd been inflating metrics, altering reports, even forging client feedback. And get this, she'd used my login a few times to do it. I froze. "What do you mean she used my login?" "Check your email," Angela whispered. "I forwarded you something from IT." Sure enough, there it was. A flag report showing my credentials were used to access sensitive files on days I wasn't even in the office. My name was all over the audit trail. If the company decided to pursue legal action, I was the fall guy. Panic punched me in the gut. I sat there, staring at my screen, feeling like I was free falling. Angela sent another message, "I don't think they know yet. But Lisa's trying to cover her ass. She threw your name out in today's meeting. Said you might have gone rogue." Rogue? My hands shook. I had to get ahead of this. I called a friend who worked in corporate law. She listened to everything, then asked one question: "Do you have proof you didn't do it?" I did. I kept a private log of every day I worked and every system I accessed. I also had screenshots from days I was working off-site with geotags. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Get everything together," she said. "We're going to send them a legal notice. Today." The next 48 hours were a blur. Emails flew. My lawyer drafted a letter demanding a full investigation and absolving me of liability, with a friendly reminder that if they didn't comply, we'd be going public. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. An anonymous email landed in my inbox. No subject. Just an attachment labeled, "Read this now." I scanned the file and felt the color drain from my face. It was a transcript of a conversation Lisa and a senior exec, talking about how they planned to pin the data manipulation on me if things went south. She even called me the perfect scapegoat. The voice on the audio was unmistakable. I knew Lisa's tone anywhere. That was the smoking gun. My lawyer nearly cheered when I forwarded it to her. "We can bury them with this," she said. By the end of the week, the company had launched an internal audit. Lisa was suspended pending investigation, and I got an apology from the CEO himself. They offered me my job back. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. "Thanks," I replied, "but I'd rather shovel cow manure than work for you again." It felt good. Better than good. It felt right. But this story doesn't end there. Because just when I thought the worst was over, a reporter called me. She had been tipped off by someone on the inside. She wanted to talk about whistleblowers, corporate fraud, and the guy who took down the golden girl of analytics. That guy was me. I never expected to become the poster child for corporate whistleblowing. But within a week of that phone call, everything exploded. The reporter, Jenna, was relentless. In a good way. She'd done her homework. She already knew about Lisa's suspension and even had details on past complaints against her that had been quietly buried. "There's a story here," she said. "And people need to hear it." At first, I hesitated. I didn't want my name plastered all over some exposé. I just wanted my life back. But then Jenna said something that stuck with me: "You're not the only one she's hurt. You're just the first one who fought back." So I told her everything. The late nights, the public humiliation, the cover-ups, the scapegoating. We spoke for hours. She recorded everything with my permission and promised to keep my identity anonymous until I was ready to go public. The article dropped the following Monday. It didn't just go viral. It detonated. The headline alone sent shivers down my spine. "Inside the scandal at Wechsler Dynamics: How a mid-level manager nearly took down a Fortune 500 firm." My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Texts. Emails. Former co-workers I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to say, "I always knew something was off about Lisa," or "Man, you're a legend." Even more surprising? People from other companies started messaging me, asking if I'd consult for them on improving internal transparency and ethics. I laughed out loud when I saw the first offer. But then came another. And another. By the end of that week, I had 3 consulting contracts lined up. All paying more than I ever made at Wechsler. It was like stepping into a parallel universe. Then came the legal fallout. Lisa was officially terminated, along with 2 senior execs who had been complicit. Wechsler Dynamics publicly announced a full-scale review of its management practices. They offered whistleblower protections, new audit protocols, and even tried to paint themselves as champions of reform. It was a classic case of corporate spin. But I didn't care. I wasn't their pawn anymore. One night, Jenna called me again. "You sure you still want to stay anonymous? Because I've got networks asking for interviews. CNN. CNBC. Even 60 Minutes." I nearly dropped my drink. "You're joking." "Dead serious." "You're the guy who said no and walked away." "That's rare. People want to hear from you." I told her I'd think about it. And I did, hard. Because here's the thing, my whole life, I played it safe. Did what was expected. Put my head down, did the work, stayed out of trouble. And where did that get me? One nervous breakdown away from a total collapse. Now, people were calling me brave. Resilient. Smart. But I wasn't brave. I was fed up. Still, something about owning my story felt necessary. Not just for me, but for every person stuck under a Lisa, wondering if speaking up is worth the risk. So I said yes. A week later, I sat under bright lights in a studio, telling my story to millions. I laid it all out, no scripts, no filters. Just the truth. The mess. The fear. The rage. The relief. After the interview aired, something shifted. My inbox exploded with messages from strangers. "You gave me the courage to quit. I reported my boss after watching your story. You made me feel seen." And suddenly, I wasn't just the guy who quit a job. I was a catalyst. In the months after my interview aired, my life transformed into something I never imagined. I wasn't just out of a job, I was on a mission. What started as a story about quitting became a full-blown movement. People started recognizing me on the street. Not in a paparazzi kind of way, more like someone would lean in at a coffee shop and whisper, "You're the guy from that whistleblower thing, right?" And they always followed it with a personal story. A toxic boss. An abusive manager. A career nearly destroyed. It blew me away how many of us were silently suffering. That's when I decided to do something bigger. I partnered with a couple of those companies that reached out early on and started my own consulting firm. Not one of those stiff, jargon-filled groups with flowcharts and buzzwords. Nah, we were real. Honest. Gritty. We taught companies how to spot the leases before they wrecked a department. How to build a culture where people weren't afraid to speak up. Our first major client was a tech startup in Seattle. They flew me out, rolled out the red carpet, and treated me like I was some kind of hero. But halfway through my workshop, I found a Lisa in the making, a young, ambitious VP who treated his team like pawns. After the session, I pulled the CEO aside and laid it out. "If you don't deal with him now, you'll be giving the same apology I got from Wexler 6 months from now." To his credit, the CEO listened. That VP was demoted the next day. Word spread. Our waiting list grew. We expanded fast, from just me and a couple friends to a full team of consultants, psychologists, and HR veterans. We didn't just fix problems. We helped companies rebuild trust from the ground up. Meanwhile, I started speaking at conferences. TEDx. Corporate retreats. Even colleges. I told my story 100 times, but it never lost its fire. Because every time I spoke, I saw that one face in the crowd, the one who needed to hear that they weren't crazy. That they weren't alone. And then came the book deal. A major publisher approached me after one of my talks. They wanted me to write it all down, from that awful Zoom call to the media storm to the rise of my company. At first, I laughed. "I'm not a writer," I told them. They didn't care. "Just tell it how you lived it." So I did. The book was raw, honest, messy. Just like the journey. When it dropped, it hit the bestseller list in 2 weeks. I got messages from all over the world, India, Germany, Brazil, from people who saw themselves in my story. And yet, with all the praise and recognition, I still had moments where I doubted myself. I'd wake up some mornings and wonder if it was all just a lucky break. If I'd really changed anything. Then, one day, I got a letter. Handwritten. It was from a woman in Ohio. Mid-40s. She said she'd been in the same job for 19 years, under a boss who made her feel worthless. Every day, she told herself she couldn't leave because of the mortgage, the kids, the fear. Then she read my book. And she quit. She ended her letter with this: "Thank you for reminding me that freedom is worth the risk." I'd forgotten. I sat in my office and cried. Because that's when it hit me, I wasn't just a guy who walked away from a toxic job. I was someone who helped others walk away too. It's been 3 years since I walked out of that office without a plan, without a backup, just a gut feeling that staying would destroy me. And now, I wake up each day with purpose. Number 6 a.m. panic attacks. No fake smile meetings. No wondering if my voice will be dismissed or manipulated. I live by a simple rule now: if it costs me my peace, it's too expensive. My consulting firm, ironically called Exit Strategy, has helped over 200 companies rebuild. We've saved careers. Fixed broken teams. We've even gotten a few apologies from companies who used to sweep things under the rug. They bring us in now before things fall apart. That's the real win. But I never forgot where this all started. That version of me, burned out and undervalued, still lives somewhere in the back of my mind. He reminds me why I do this. Why I speak up. Why I fight. Because for every person who's found a way out, there are 100 more who feel trapped. One of our newest projects is a mentorship program. We match professionals stuck in toxic roles with those who've made it out. We call it the walkout line. Because sometimes, all someone needs is to know they're not the only one. The first mentee we ever had was a woman named Priya. Brilliant. Hardworking. And so beaten down she could barely make eye contact when we met. Her boss had been micromanaging her into a mental breakdown. 6 months later, Priya was leading her own team at a new company that valued her. I got an invite to her promotion party. I showed up, and she hugged me like I was family. That night, I realized this wasn't just a career shift for me. It was a legacy. A domino effect of people saying, no more. And yeah, I still get trolls. People who say I should have stuck it out. That I was dramatic. But I've learned something powerful. Quitting isn't weakness. It's strategy. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away. Not because you failed, but because you finally saw the game was rigged. These days, I get to travel. To create. To build. I work with people I respect. I spend my evenings with my partner, cooking dinner, listening to music, living. And every now and then, I open that resignation email, the one I wrote at 3:12 a.m., and smile. Because that one act of defiance? It gave me everything. So if you're reading this, stuck in a job that drains you, a boss who breaks you, a system that forgets your name, know this. You are not alone. And it's not the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning. You can walk away. And when you do, I'll be right here, cheering you on. The guy who quit without a backup plan.